So, Michael, Christmas has come and gone, and would you like to tell us what you got on the 25th of December?
Slippers.
Really? That was your best thing that you got?
No. Well, to be honest, when you're older, Christmas isn't that entertaining. So I got a lot of small things. I got a bright orange snood. I got a few books. Oh, I got a book by Frankie Boyle. We love him. So yeah, overall I was quite happy with what I got. But it was a lot of small things. So I don't know if you have a more entertaining answer, maybe one big exciting thing, but did you have such a gift for Christmas?
Well, Michael, same as you, I didn't really get anything big. But then out of nowhere, I got the best Christmas gift possible. Do you know what that was?
Your salvation. You decided to believe on Jesus Christ because you were just captured by how wonderful the Christmas celebration is.
Wonder Woman 1984 came out on HBO Max, I believe yesterday. And let me just say, we might have to go over who won the annual Rotten Tomatoes, guessing game at the end of this podcast after we review Last Ounce of Courage.
So what I'm guessing is that you won because of some later developments.
Well, let's just see, Michael. Let's just see.
I know.
We have to wait. First, let's get into Last Ounce of Courage.
Hello and welcome to Select and Reflect, the movie review podcast where we look at films that have come out in the near and distant past. We give them a couple of watches and evaluate them beyond first impressions. I'm your host Michael and joined as always by my co-host Luke. And this week we are celebrating Christmas in general by looking at one of the greatest Christmas films ever made, Last Ounce of Courage. Luke, why don't you tell us a thing or two about Last Ounce of Courage?
Well, Michael, I'm so glad you asked. Yes, Last Ounce of Courage. We did Home Alone last week. And now it's time for some, well, a movie that's probably just under in terms of the amount of love it gets every time Christmas rolls around. So yeah, Last Ounce of Courage is a 2012 American Christian Christmas drama film. A Christian Christmas film.
Sorry, I thought all of Christmas was Christian.
Clearly not. Directed by Darrell Campbell and Kevin McAfee and starring Marshall R. Teague, Jennifer O'Neill, and Fred Williamson. Do you know who Fred Williamson is, Michael?
No, not really.
He's an American actor and former professional American football defensive back who mainly played in the AFL. Williamson is best known for his film career, starring as Tommy Gibbs in the crime drama film Black Caesar and its sequel Hell Up in Harlem. So yeah, he's an American football player, but also he's, an actor. So I thought I recognised this person, and I think it's because he was a football player back in the day. But I don't know. He's an old black guy with a moustache. Yeah,
that's kind of a quite standard look.
Yeah, so I'm not really sure about that. But anyway, let's get into Last Ounce of Courage again. The movie was released on September the 14th, 2012. And Michael, can you tell me what the box office was?
Well, I tell you what it was, Luke. It was not enough. That's whatever it was. Genuinely, I have no idea. Literally anything I could guess would just be. So I'm going to go for 54 million.
What?
That's too much. Yeah, sorry. I don't know what.
What the fuck is wrong with you?
I don't know.
Why would you guess this movie made 54 million?
I don't know. It was like I realized as I was kind of saying it was wrong, and I don't know where that came from. No, it's probably made like 12 million. It's a better guess. You're still like 4 times off. It's 3.3. Okay.
And by the way, Michael, we don't have a budget with this movie either, unfortunately.
Yeah, I was wondering that.
But take a guess, Michael, why this movie was released in September rather than November or December. Do you know why?
It could have been like an election reason. That seems a bit too far off from. Maybe 9/11.
No, it's not 9/11.
Okay,
I don't think it's 9/11.
I thought people might have been excited about 9/11.
Maybe it was actually. I hadn't considered that because it was just 3 days after the anniversary of 9/11. But I more than likely think it's about the election.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah,
that's what I thought.
Yeah, I think so because obviously it's a Christmas movie. Why isn't it released in November or December? It's released in September, the middle of September. I assume because to get people hyped up for the election.
Yeah,
word of mouth to spread about it because obviously it's political, and I think they think that'll probably be the best thing for this movie because everybody will be amped up on politics. throughout the next month in America. And yeah, they were hoping that this... I don't know if they were hoping that this would lead to Obama losing to Mitt Romney. I'm not sure.
Well, no, this was 2014, right? So it would have been the midterms.
No, 2012.
Was it the 20... Oh, holy shit, I actually didn't know that this whole time.
Yeah, 2012, yeah. Kirk Cameron Saving Christmas was 2014.
Oh, yeah, I'm getting my weird films confused. Okay, yeah, that explains it. Okay, yeah.
And it's important to actually, I think, point out why we're doing this movie today. It's because, well, every year since last year, we've had this tradition. Long-standing, almost as traditional as the very
Christmas
religious
itself.
holidays that these people in this movie are fighting to defend. We have this tradition, like I said, stretched back 2 years, where we go back and look at a really bad Christmas movie done by, I think, all the worst ones are by like deranged Christians who, are very scared about Christmas in some way or another. Kirk Cameron's last year was about the fact that people thought Christmas was commercializing and, the true spirit of Christmas was being lost to Santa Claus. And this one is about, all the liberals are coming in to take away Christmas. Yeah, even though they never actually say that outright. It's pretty clear what that is. So yeah, a different kind of Christmas Christian movie, this one. And we're going to do it again next year, Michael.
Good. I'm excited to hear what you've got lined up. I'm sure it'll be... Have you got anything lined up? Don't tell me. I don't want spoilers, but have you got something lined up?
I won't tell you. So yeah, that's why we're doing it. And by the way, just to let you know, Michael... Oh, I said before this movie didn't have a budget. I couldn't find a budget, by the way. But almost certainly, apparently, this movie made a loss. This was from Box Office Mojo. The website said this indicated that the opening was probably a pretty serious financial disappointment because it only made 1.59 million. And yeah, that's so probably a lot of money was lost in this. And The Last Ounce of Courage was also the subject of a 2014 class action lawsuit. The lawsuit alleges that the film's marketing team conducted a massive robocall advertising campaign, which was alleged to be in violation of the Telephone Consumer Protection Act, and in 2017 a federal judge awarded $32.4 million to the plaintiffs of Last Ounce of Courage, which is, of course, if you know your maths, about 10 times the amount of money this made at the box office. So, incredible, really. So, Michael, can you give me your opinion on whether you liked Last Ounce of Courage or not? Did you like it?
Well, it's funny, actually, because this film, I think I've referenced it before on the podcast without remembering what it was. And it's because I remember, and I think this was when I was actually at uni, in the first year of uni, I watched a film called A Matter of Faith, which is basically a Christian film where the plot is that this dad, his daughter goes off to a university and starts learning about evolution. So he decides to go to the university and have a debate with the professor who's teaching evolution. Anyway, and I saw that. I thought that seems really funny. I'll watch it. And then I think I can't remember where it was I was watching it, but there was kind of on the side similar films, and one of them was this film, but I didn't remember what it was called. But the one line I remembered is a line which I'm sure we'll talk about, but I've referenced it before on this podcast, which is the line, the people here can't even celebrate Christmas. They're not even allowed to celebrate Christmas. And I referenced that, and I didn't remember what the film was. So when I started watching this, I was so happy because I was like, I've seen this film before and I love it. And I love it, Luke. That's the truth. I think it is, this is probably my favorite so bad it's good film that we've actually ever watched, because I just think it's such a perfect storm of everything.
Last Ounce of Courage.
Yeah, I think it's my favorite, worst, bad movie we've watched in terms of just how hilariously it's everything about it is just so funny, how on the nose it is. Well, what do you think?
I mean, here's the thing. Yes, it's funny, and some aspects are really, really funny. But for the majority of the movie, I was just really bored.
Okay.
And there are some peaks where it gets good, and you can laugh at it, and it is hilarious. It's genuinely like, oh my god, this is amazing. But most of it's just so fucking boring.
Yeah, I suppose it does feel its length, actually. Because I remember, I mean, obviously I was watching it for the second time, shortly before doing this review. And I remember thinking, like, that when he goes and puts the big cross on top of the building, that was the end of the film. And I was thinking, okay, yeah, it's at the end of the film. And then the film continued, and I was like, oh wait, there's still quite a bit left. So yeah, I will admit it feels its length, but I do think it is really stupid, which I guess we'll get into.
Yeah, it is for sure. But again, I think, is there anything that I haven't seen before with the majority of the stupidity? There are some absolutely classic scenes, but the overall message is quite. I've heard it before. It's quite to me anyway, it's not that entertaining. Like, oh, the war on Christmas. It's like, yeah, this has been something that's been happening for. I mean, obviously this movie came out in 2012. We are in the year 2020. Donald Trump thankfully brought back Christmas. So maybe it's out of our minds, and maybe next year with Joe Biden as president, now Christmas will once again be under threat, and this movie will be more relevant. But it just kind of seems like, for me, quite boring. Anyway, Michael, how many nitpicks do you have?
I've got 3, which might seem like few, but it's mostly because everything else is not a nitpick. It's too much to not be a nitpick. Oh, sorry, too much to be a nitpick.
I've only got 2.
Okay, yeah, similar.
I'll go first.
Yeah.
The guy in the jail cell.
Oh, Bob. Yeah.
Right, so we broadcast the Christmas play. I put that down as a nitpick. And I was like, how the fuck does he know? But apparently he's some magical being.
Yeah.
And that is just... This movie is operating in the real world. It doesn't rely on, like, Christmas miracle bullshit. And then at the end they just throw it in. So I'm like, okay, well, this is just... you can't do a movie that's about the serious nature of Christmas and how it needs to be protected. And then just have, some angel come in.
Yeah, tonally it's a bit weird. I agree, actually.
And my other nitpick is the black guy who helps the kids, the janitor. So this movie isn't racist. Yeah, is a well-known trope. We went over this last year with Kirk Cameron Saving Christmas. There's always one black guy who's a side character, who's meant to be a good guy.
Token.
Yeah, a token. That is what it is, a token. And yeah, this time it was the janitor. And thank God, otherwise the only black character would be Hammerschmidt's, and oh dear, that wouldn't. Look good,
I found that funny. Yeah, it's kind of.
So thank God for the janitor, but again, none of the main characters who are good are black either. But anyway, Michael, you give me your nitpicks.
Oh yeah, so first of all, the mum, Kari, I think is her name, says, we haven't had a real Thanksgiving for years, and she's really excited about it. And I'm thinking, well, why hasn't she been to see them before? Like, I don't think... You just think, why is it as if... I felt like the reason why she wouldn't have been to see them before was not really well established, so she's just acting like, oh, it's so annoying. Like, it's been years since I've been able to be with family for Thanksgiving. You think, well, why? She can go see people. This one's weird. Why is Chris in school when they've just come to visit? I was confused by this. It seemed like the film had established that they weren't moving to the place. The film never seemed to establish that, and yet he just starts randomly going to that school. And I was so confused by that. Like... I just didn't know. And finally, I find it weird that the cross that he hauls up onto the top of the building was apparently so heavy that it needed 3 people to lift it up. Like, what is it made out of? And if it's made out of something so heavy that it needs 3 people to lift it up, how on earth is it just being supported, being hung on the side of that building like that? Very strange. And those are my 3 nitpicks. But enough of nitpicks. What really matters is the plot. So, Luke, could you kindly tell us the plot of The Last Ounce of Courage?
Sure thing, Michael. So, Last Ounce of Courage centres on the struggles of Bob Revere. Oh, is that his surname? Revere, however you say it.
Oh, yeah, that's actually quite funny. That's quite... I like that.
Paul Revere, the guy who said to the people of Boston, the British are coming during the Revolutionary War. That's great, that's fun. Is a man dealing with what he feels. I love that.
Yeah, that passive phrasing by Wikipedia.
A man dealing
phrasing.
Yeah, a man dealing with what he feels is his freedom of religion under attack by the government of his community and an ACLU-like group. So yeah, he's worried that his religion is disappearing. And by the way, there is a synopsis on Wikipedia, and it's just one line. The plot isn't taken into account. So yeah, good job to whoever wrote this plot. You did a bang-up job. After the death of his son Thomas, Mayor Bob Revere has to deal with politicians removing Christmas and starts a controversial protest. That's a lot more forceful. Removing Christmas. Yeah, they're just taking Christmas and removing it and putting it in a box. Okay, so Michael, let's get into the plot then. So First off, Veritas Marketing made this movie, so you know it's got to be good. I don't know if it's linked with Project Veritas. I have no idea, but that's I guess that's something that doesn't really matter because you got the Latin word for truth, and as we know, conservatives, they love like Latin, and they love they're putting like Roman philosophers as their bios on Twitter, or as their profile pictures, I should say. So I just like that little detail. I have to point it out. So the movie starts off where this kid is being sent off to war in the Middle East
Yeah.
to defend freedom and the profitability of Halliburton as well.
Yeah. You got
but
to.
then unfortunately he dies while in Iraq or Afghanistan, and his dad also served in the Vietnam War as well. So this is a theme basically starting off right away that you've got to sacrifice for your country and all that. And then we have a funeral scene, very depressing. And first thing I loved about this movie, it's very sad. Everyone's very upset because their son has died. His wife is upset. The parents are upset. And then just a hard cut to 14 years. Did it say 14 years later? Was that it?
Yeah, I think it was. Well, that would make sense with the kid's age because he looks like he'd be about 14.
Yeah, so shit. That means that maybe they weren't in Iraq or Afghanistan.
Well, yeah, actually, yeah, that doesn't make any sense. I think it's probably just a stupid timeline thing, to be honest. Like, I think, because otherwise this would be 1998. And that wouldn't, because...
What war would that be where everyone's being shipped off to?
I think this film must actually be set in 2016, like in a weird illogical way.
Oh, even then, that would future. Yes,
yeah, because that's the only explanation.
Yes. Absolutely.
Because they weren't suggesting that America was that bad in 2012, but they knew by 2016 that's when the war on Christmas was going to really kick off.
Yes, exactly, and you couldn't say Christmas. Yes, and that would make sense because there's this point in the movie where the female. Or the wife, the mother of the dead son says, "Oh, we used to basically say, come to our Christmas party, and then we just started saying holiday party about 10 years ago." Yeah. I was like, well, if this movie is set in 2012, then
that would be during George Bush,
2002 George Bush. That one really makes sense. But now, if you think about it, 10 years ago, well, if this movie is set 14, say he went off to Iraq or Afghanistan in 2003. 14 years later would be 2017 or 2016 or whatever, 10 years ago. Hey, that's the start when Obama was running for president. Oh, that makes a lot more sense now. Okay, yeah, and it fits with this conservative thing of always like absolutely fear-mongering about Obama. There was the famous conservative propagandist Dinesh D'Souza.
Yes.
Made a lot of hacky movies about this was what America will look like if Obama wins a second term, and he wins a second term and it doesn't look like it.
It's a bit like the whole QAnon thing, but because QAnon, they never say, "Oh, it's happening right now." They're always like, 12 weeks, 12 days or whatever.
It's always in the future, and the same thing he did with Hillary Clinton.
Yes.
And you saw it less with Biden. I think maybe because the conservatives were more convinced that Trump was going to win, and because hey, he's their god, he can't lose. But yeah, you do see like people like, Biden's going to take all our guns and the Chinese Communist Party is going to run the country, blah blah blah. It's just, and then it never happens, and then they weren't like, oh, okay, we need to reflect. No, absolutely not. We'll just keep on ramming up the conspiracy theories.
It's admirable how shameless they are in a way. Like, it's almost impressive.
Yeah, so this is, I guess, a theme really then of conservatives setting movies in the near future describing how just bad life is. Yeah. So yeah, that's good. I guess that's good.
The thing is, they've kind of got a weird situation where they're circumspect enough to not have it be set like, immediately, but they're not smart enough to have it be set like 10, 20 years in the future. It's always like, because if this was 2017 in 2012, that would be like 5 years in the future.
Well, they don't care.
Yeah,
they're just trying to scare people.
Exactly,
That's it. So, it's not a question of being smart, it's just scaring people. This is what will happen, in just like 4 or 5 years' time. But by the way, the hard cut to 14 years later when it happens, there's old school rock music playing, and then some... the motorcycle gang, which is a weird feature of this movie. They show up in bits and places, and one of them's a dwarf, which is just quite funny, and it's not really. I mean, of course, dwarf. People who are dwarfs exist. So I'm not saying they don't, and their mere existence is funny. Just that they would be in a movie, and like it's not really explained why there is a dwarf in this movie.
Yeah, I was thinking that too. It's kind of like a weird situation where, on the one hand, the film never makes a joke out of the fact that he is a dwarf. And yet, at the same time, there's a part of you that feels like, I guess it's kind of because they're a motorcycle gang, it makes you feel like the film is in the subtext trying to be like, oh, it's kind of funny that there's a dwarf in this motorbike gang. But then at the same time, you're thinking, wait, am I being bigoted because I'm thinking that a dwarf being in a motorbike gang is automatically funny, or is the film, it really plays with your mind like that. I will say, actually, I did find the idea of him being like a cool granddad who, works at the pharmacy and helps out the local motorbike gang.
So then, Michael, after he fixes up the motorcycle gang's gun wounds, he meets he doesn't meet a kid. Well, he kind of does. He meets his grandson, who is called Christian.
Yes.
Which is great because, of course, last year Kirk Cameron was talking to a character called Christian.
Not very creative.
Yeah, and this year it's the same thing. Christian, the kid, he's almost like he's Christ, because he's a kid. He's come to save Christmas. He instigates things. I don't know, but I'm again, it's just that's 2 times in 2 years we've seen one of the main characters be called Christian in these Christmas movies. So you got to respect, like you said, the creativity. So Christian is moving to this town, Mount Columbus, I believe it's called, permanently, and he's moving from California. And of course, like you said, I thought they were just there for Thanksgiving, but apparently not. He's moving there permanently. Never explained why this is the case, why he's, his mum's making such a drastic life, change. But anyway, he's living with his grandparents now, apparently. The plot really kicks off after he isn't allowed to bring a Bible into school.
Yes.
And when it happened, obviously the principal calls his parents and he's like, hey, this kid got caught with a Bible. And I'm like, well, because they didn't reveal it immediately that it is a Bible. And I don't, I was thinking, well, what could this be? Because it's not going to be a Bible, because that would be too ridiculous. It surely wouldn't be a Bible, and then it is a Bible. I was thinking that the only thing that makes sense here is a Bible, but it can't be a Bible. And then it is.
You had too much trust in their common sense.
I know, right? And then obviously he's the one trying to bring back Christmas. He, like I said, instigates things. He says, hey, my dad died in some Middle Eastern conflict, and therefore, he wanted you to go and save Christmas, Bob. Well, he doesn't call him Bob, that's the character. And I was just thinking, well, he comes from California, and surely in California it's probably more quote-unquote liberal than this place.
I was thinking
he would know the rule about the Bible and generally wouldn't be so pro-Christian as he is. Like that doesn't really make that much sense to me. But what do you think?
I found it. Yeah, I did find it funny that the kid, because you kind of think he's like a teenager, he's grown up without a dad. That's the kind of thing which, especially in a conservative film, you can imagine. But in general, obviously there's a logic to single parent households just have fewer resources. That's a kid who's more likely to grow up to be kind of a bad seed, as they say. And you can imagine him at least being a little bit rebellious. And I was kind of thinking that would be where the film was going, like that there would be some kind of conflict between Christian and the granddad, because Christian would, he comes from California, comes from a single parent household. You'd think these two things would, and obviously he's a modern teenager, that this would be a thing where it'd be like, oh, boomers, watch out, your kids are going to turn into terrible atheist nihilists or whatever. But instead, shockingly, Christian is just incredibly gun-ho about this idea of taking back Christmas, more so even than his own granddad. And it's weird, just in all sorts of senses, but from a narrative perspective, it also reduces the amount of interpersonal conflict, because the only conflict comes from just these nebulous authority figures. It's strange.
Yeah, that's the thing. I thought initially what would happen is he would be, anti-Christian.
Yeah.
He wouldn't be along with it, and then he gets to learn a bit about Christmas and his dad, and then he's like, okay, I'm fully on board the Christmas train, and then he, I guess, then can instigate things.
Yeah,
like, why things aren't like this anymore?
I was just imagining a Ben Shapiro character going like, it's curious that you say you're anti-Christian, but your name is Christian. And then Christian goes, oh God, you're right.
God. It's actually talking of Ben Shapiro. This is kind of, because he wrote this book, True Allegiance, back around this time.
Oh yeah, he did, yeah.
And it's in this movie. I don't know, it's Hall of Fame. I haven't seen enough of it, but certainly Shapiro's book is in the Hall of Fame, maybe alongside this in terms of Christian media, which is of course inherently conservative. That is just so shit and just so bad. So okay, let's move on to here's the thing, there isn't really a moment where Bob gets inspired to defend Christmas.
Yeah.
His kid, they're watching Bill O'Reilly, of course. Yeah, and that's wonderful. Bill O'Reilly, he's saying that there's war on Christmas, and then his grandson says, we've got to do something. We've got to stop this war on Christmas. And then he dusts off the old motorcycle, does Bob. The most cliche thing ever. Has a big American flag on it. Then he gets into his office. at the town hall and goes on a rant about, the internet. He goes on a rant about what he found on the internet, and he found all this stuff about Christmas and how it's been taken away on patrioteagle.com. And very realistic, very, very prescient, that, because that was what was going to happen in 2016 and 2017 for sure. So he gives an interview then to this local news reporter outside of this truck thing. I don't know what it's called, but he's like leaning over.
Yeah,
and it just looks
news van.
No.
Oh, sorry, I might be thinking of the wrong truck. Sorry, I can't remember the scene photographically. Explain it to me.
No, I'm not a news van. I mean, he's in a fucking digger, isn't he?
Oh yeah. Okay, I don't know what it's called.
Yeah,
I can't. Yeah, I just can't remember. I mean, to be honest, Luke, I blocked it from my memory. It was very early on in the film. You're saying that
this movie. I'm saying the movie is boring, and yet I can remember more about it than you can.
Maybe that's why I find it so entertaining, because every single thing is new to me.
Well, this thing is entertaining. This was one of the best bits of the movie, when he's leaning out like the digger thing, and he's just like giving an interview, leaning over. It looks so fucking stupid.
Yeah, and it's when that's when the bikers are watching, like, hey, the mayor's on TV. Am I getting this right? Okay, I can remember things. Good.
Yeah, and of course you're meant to take the scene seriously, but yeah, that's just hilarious. That scene, and then who's watching on the TV, Michael? Who's watching on the TV? None other than Warren Hammerschmidt. He doesn't like this. He calls Bob's office and they said, "Yeah, you got to stop this." And then who's his assistant? Like the meat cowardly Christian guy. He's like, "Oh my God, Bob! Warren Hammerschmidt called." Bob's like, "I don't care who called. I'm saving Christmas." And then, I don't know, because they have an establishing shot of Bob Hammerschmidt's office, and he's in Washington. I thought that was meant to be the case. Like, they showed the Capitol building, they show like an office, and so I think he's like in Washington, in a very important building there, because he's meant to be a stand-in for an ACLU type character. And then later on in the day, when he's given an interview, he just rocks up into Bob's interview. You remember that, when they're giving an interview on the news, and he's like, "How did he get there so quickly?" he's just over there immediately. And I find his depiction extremely funny in this movie, because he's walking around like he's an FBI agent. He has a cigar in his mouth. Like he's some bad, like he's an evil movie character from a show or TV show or a movie involving the FBI, involving like the CIA, that these filmmakers have seen, and they want to recreate that character. But instead, he's like an ACLU lawyer who's wants people to take down their Christmas decorations from a town hall. That's this badass cigar smoking dude, Warren Hammerschmidt, whose name strikes fear into the heart of good, hard-working, God-fearing conservatives across America.
You got to think, like, what does he tell himself when he goes to sleep at night? Like, you can imagine him just like, he gets, I don't know, like some people show up singing carols and it's like, "Oh, I was one day away from retirement, man." Like, just has all the like typical, like gruff cop cliches, and yet his job is just stopping people celebrating Christmas. It is very fun.
Not even stopping people celebrating Christmas, like stopping like a Christmas tree from being put up outside a courthouse, like just the most boring thing ever. But he's smoking a cigar. He's called Hammerschmidt. That's funny. That's one of the bright spots. Yeah, exactly. The Hammer. That's what they call him. Oh God, just hilarious.
It's funny how he's like famous too. Like, I don't know, ACLU lawyers. Well, really
exactly. That's the point I'm making. He's famous. Like, who the fuck would care about this? And so basically, then the movie is about a back and forth between Hammerschmidt and the mayor. The mayor loses his job title as mayor, so he's just Bob now, because he refuses to take down the Christmas decorations. And then, of course, it culminates with him putting up that Jesus Save sign. Mm-hmm. And then he gets arrested for that.
Yes.
And then we get the Christmas play at the end, Michael.
Oh,
yes. So throughout the movie, Christian, who's the kid, he and his, I think it's like middle school kids, have been conspiring to remake their nativity play, which is funny to me because, of course, nativity plays has to be one of the most boring plays ever.
Yeah.
It's like I'd like it, like an alien twist on a nativity play, because it's like, oh yeah, something different instead of the same old fucking nativity scene. Like, we all know how it's gone. We don't need another play on that. Something a bit different would be good. But anyway, apparently you're not allowed to have a Christmas play anymore in school.
Yeah.
So what do the kids do, Michael? Do you want to say?
Well, so basically they have their Operation Sabotage. Well, it's not Operation Sabotage, it's Operation Christmas. And it's basically they steal the show. You know, I know that's an expression already, to steal the show, but they literally steal the show by replacing the spaceship elements with Christmas elements, with, you know, biblical elements. And obviously they lock the guy who's in charge of running the play, it's kind of actually, it's a bit like how the Hammer is a very serious person about his incredibly boring job. His counter is this guy who's in charge of organizing, I guess he's the stage director or whatever, the guy who's in charge of organizing the play, who also takes his job incredibly seriously, which is very funny. But yeah, he gets locked away so they can do the whole performance. But then, I mean, I want to move on to the big thing, which is that Christian, who rather inexplicably, this was a bit strange actually, despite the fact that he was the person who initially told everyone to start celebrating Christmas, he then becomes very passive and kind of aggressive during the time of them planning Operation Christmas. Like, he says he's not going to do anything. He repeatedly refuses to do things. And then he says, like, oh, it's not going to achieve anything. And you're kind of like, oh, hold on, you were the guy who was pushing it. So that was a bit weird. And then he comes up on stage as this angel is delivering kind of one of the important lines. They don't actually get through much of the nativity play when I think about it. They just get the angel speech, but whatever. Anyway, he comes out and he basically just starts reading it alongside, which, you know, buddy, you're not even in costume. You haven't been to rehearsals. Don't do that. And then, I'm conscious that I'm talking a lot, but, you know, so maybe I'll throw it over to you after I introduce this. They play some footage in the middle of this school play. They play footage of his dad filming himself doing a little vlog in Iraq, where he says, you know, oh man, it's so rough. The people here in Iraq, they can't even celebrate Christmas.
Okay, right. Well, first of all, we have to talk about the fact that the message is even played in the first place. That's the thing with Christian. He is basically, he says, you know, oh, it's not big enough, it's not good enough, in reference to, you know, the Christmas play. Yeah. And I guess this is what he means, because he wants everybody, all the kids, all the parents, to see, like, his dead dad, like, dying.
He literally dies
on
like
camera. His last words. And yeah, I mean, 90% of people watching will be wondering, what the fuck is going on here? Why are we seeing this? Like, okay, this is now a nativity play instead of an alien nativity play, but this isn't even Christmas. This is just some guy, random guy who they don't know. He's, you know, he died like 14 years ago.
Yeah.
Like, playing, you know, a message from Iraq, which, you know, would, and of course now, yeah, it's like, oh, Iraq will remember that, and that will be the case for these people too. And then we get that line from the soldier where, of course, you know, the dad, where he says, people can't even celebrate Christmas over here in Iraq or Afghanistan, where, of course, you know, they're Muslim, they have no need to celebrate Christmas. And then because I remember you mentioned that before, and when it happened, I was like, yeah, I was expecting that. And I just expected it to end, and then a little speech to be given by Christian, I don't know, something like that. And then, oh my God,
he gets blown up.
Then he dies at the end of the shot. Oh my God.
And it just holds on his dead face.
Yes, he holds on his dead face. I can't believe that the camera, by the way, is still there, that hasn't broken. Like, the blast was big enough to kill him, but not the camera.
I know, it's so funny.
Then he's just shown the whole school his dad dying on camera. What the fuck is? Oh, this kid is fucked in the head, man. More than we realize. My God. And then the teacher comes on to the stage, and he's like, what's going on here? I'm like, oh my God, what's going to happen here? And then he starts clapping, like, like, how is the teacher? Okay, you can like the fact that the nativity is being played, you know, and that the Christmas is back, and you can like the message that Christian's dad gave. But surely, if you just see someone in your middle school, like, a video of this person dying, like, on screen, like, everyone in that hall will now have PTSD. Everyone's going to have PTSD, and he just starts clapping, and I'm like, oh wow, if this doesn't prove that American Christianity in this film, which sadly is quite dominant in America, if this doesn't prove that it's not a death cult, then I don't know what is.
They start like also some before that some veteran like this one veteran stands up and just salutes.
I mean, what do you think if you just went along? You went into this Christmas stuff and you saw that video, just to see your kid performing the school play, and you just saw someone dying on screen.
Yeah, like some guy with his camcorder, like, I can't wait to film. Oh yeah, my kid's got the lead part in the Winter Space Odyssey or whatever, holding up their camera to film it, and then oh dear.
Oh my god. It is a death cult. No, it's like, oh, this thing isn't traumatic. It's not like, oh my god, how the fuck could you play that? Instead, it's wow, how inspirational that he died for his country, and we should celebrate the fact that he died for his country, and in the middle of a fucking middle school play. Jesus Christ. And that's the thing, it's like, it's not even it's gone from, and like this movie kind of does, it's gone from like Christmas. Now we've got Christmas back to, no, you need to fight and die for this nation, which is, quite a leap, but a leap that this movie takes, and that scene is an encapsulation of it. And I just have a thought, because of course the teacher at the start of the movie, is talking about how Christian can't bring a Bible into school. You can't do that, and he's like, well, we'll get sued. And I'm just thinking, well, you're definitely getting sued for that. Like,
A Bible is too much, but somebody getting killed on camera.
Yeah, like
that's fine.
A parent could easily sue you for that. Absolutely, they could, no doubt about
and
it.
Should.
Yeah, they should. And the fact that you clapped afterwards, oh, that's it. That's you're going to jail, buddy. I don't know, jail. You're losing your job. The fact that you allowed this to happen and then clapped at it. Oh, Jesus Christ! Yeah, apparently even the Fenley principal is a fucking fascist. He's fine with seeing American his middle school kids celebrate a soldier dying. In a video, and showing how great it is. Oh my god. So anyway, then we have, I guess, the end of the movie.
Yeah, there's two resolutions to some. See, okay, here's the weird thing. I don't know. There's the whole thing where the daughter, like, there's a twist where, I think it's a twist, I don't think they ever established this clearly, that Jessica, who's the news anchor that we see at the end of the film, is actually the daughter that is referenced as, they say, like, oh, we don't get along with our daughter. So they have this twist that I'm kind of counting as a twist, that Jessica was their daughter, so she goes home to be with their family. That was fine. One thing I found weird though is the film acts as if there's this big resolution to this conflict between Kari and the dad, and it's kind of like, again, it's this film's weird desire to not want to have any interpersonal conflict between any of the main characters, where it's like, did Kari and the dad really not get along? Like, they kind of, I get that there was some. Like, the dad was kind of a bit grumpy and stuff, but it's not like there was some meaningful fight between them. So it was really weird when it's kind of like at the end, they kind of like cry and they hug, and he's like, oh, you're my, I don't know what he says, but he said something like weird. And I just think, was that, I mean, maybe this is the wrong question. Were you invested in that, Luke? Were you invested in that interpersonal conflict?
Well, it was, I didn't really get it, because he says that, oh, I'm sorry for not liking you all these years, but it's why would you think that anyway?
Yeah.
And number two, it didn't really come across that much, to be honest with you. I really didn't get it. It's like, again, we don't have the conflict, and the conflict doesn't even make sense in the first place, so that end just feels completely unearned. And yeah, then of course, he has a nice sing along when he walks out of jail. Everybody in the town is singing Christmas songs, and yay, we've got Christmas back, guys, we've done it. And Warren Hammerschmidt has lost. I guess that's the conclusion. Warren Hammerschmidt is just going to give up then, maybe, because
the hammer has been nailed.
Yeah, he has, because I mean, he didn't really face a lot of resistance, did he?
No, yeah.
He just gives up. Again, it's the old fascist thing of our enemies of America. There, well, in America at least, they're incredibly weak, but at the same time they're very dangerous. That old thing. And that's the case with Hammerschmidt. He's like seen as such a villain, but at the end he just rolls over. He's like, the cop said, well, I'm not going to arrest the whole town. Then he's like, oh, okay, then I guess that's it. It's over. The town won. Mount Cumberlanders can celebrate Christmas once more. And so that's the end of the movie, Michael.
Yeah.
That's the end of the movie. I just want to say a couple of things that I liked from the plot, which I don't really know where else to put them. The kid at the start, Christian, when he meets his granddad again, and instead of shaking his hand, he tries to do this LA gang handshake, as
good.
Bob says, and that's what I was thinking. Oh, he's not going to be Christian, isn't he? He's going to be like an LA kid who doesn't know about the values and the meaning of Christmas, but that doesn't turn out to be the case. Wonderful writing as always. And did you catch the part where they had a sister called JJ? who doesn't see her parents anymore.
Yeah,
so she's a liberal. She's gone off to the big city. She's And I was like, that's some nice relatability, because you can bet Christians or people who watch this movie across the country will have one of their sons or daughters who they don't speak too much because they're a fucking crazy fundamentalist, and the kid unsurprisingly doesn't really want to be associated with that. And then we didn't really mention this, the storyline of the best friend of the dead guy hitting on his wife. Which is, I don't know, I found it quite weird. Like, of course, he is the chief of police. Naturally, he's also in law enforcement, and it's just like, it's a natural thing, I guess. Your buddy's dead wife. Well, it's been 14 years. Well, I guess it's time. The stopwatch has ended on that. Oh, the shot clock has ended, if you will. Classical reference. Yeah.
No, I also found it weird actually that his mum, or the Kari, whatever her name is, apparently was single. I mean, obviously maybe she wasn't, but it was a bit weird that the film almost acted as if she'd kind of just been doing nothing in a complete stasis for the last 14 years. And you think, I'm pretty sure that if she's going to get the hots for this, friend guy pretty quickly, that she would have ended up getting in another long-term relationship beforehand. So I would almost think it would make sense. Just, obviously it could have been there, but I feel like maybe if it would have been like, oh, she had a husband and then she got divorced and that's why she's moving back. That would have killed two birds with one stone. It would have explained why she's moving back to this place. And you would have been like, okay, so yeah, she was in a relationship.
Yeah, but if you get a divorce, then what's wrong with it?
Oh, actually, that's true. Yeah, I just realized that's the issue. Which means, I guess she was just kind of virginally waiting for 14 years, being a dutiful mother, not looking for any man.
That's the moral thing. That's the moral thing to do. So yeah, that's the plot. Again, I just say overall it's quite standard. It's pretty boring. You can really tell what's going to happen like from 20 minutes onwards, and yeah, of course the creativity is severely lacking, as you would expect. Let's get on to, I guess, the main message or the theme, Michael, which is there is a war on Christmas going on, and patriots across the nation have to stand up and stop it. So why don't you talk a bit about that?
So I think first of all it's important to understand how the film presents this war on Christmas. I've got 4 points, I think, of equal value. I want to start off with one which I think is of particular relevance to us as British people, and this is the whole Happy Holidays controversy, because I find this really interesting, because in America, amongst conservatives, there's this idea that saying Happy Holidays is part of the war on Christmas, and obviously I'm sure you will agree with me that to us, Happy Holidays is just an Americanism. So that's weird, and it's kind of hilarious that these Americans have taken this thing where it's just an American expression and they've turned it into it's a war on Christmas. Number 2, they have obviously this whole thing about offense versus being politically correct. Obviously, there's a bit where the mom's like, oh, wouldn't you believe it? We had to take the cross down. It offended somebody, which is just exactly how you imagine these people will imagine reality. And then there's the idea that putting up Christmas lights is considered an act of rebellion. And you just think like, no, everyone puts up Christmas lights. It's like the way they set it up is just so funny. And then also they complain about the secularization of Christmas, and it's again, it shows how they take these, and this is something which a lot of conservatives do, they take things which are to do with completely unrelated social factors and just pile them all together, because essentially they're talking about the idea that Christmas has become a secular holiday, and this person says, I can't remember which one it is, he says it, they say, nowadays Christmas is just about Santa Claus and buying things, and it's like, it's been like that since the 50s in the mainstream. This, like, Santa Claus comes from Coca-Cola and stuff, and you think, they have this idea, and they have another line about, like he says, do people still celebrate Christmas with, like, the shepherds and stuff? And it's like, this isn't a time thing. It's yes, if you're a super religious person, you're going to have much more religious stuff in your Christmas. But if you're in the mainstream, you're probably just going to celebrate Christmas as a secular holiday. And it's been like that for decades, probably as long as any of the people in this have been alive. It's not like America went from Christmas being 100% religious, everyone just sits around and reads Luke 2 or whatever, to, oh, it's all about Santa. It's just the divide between the religious and the secular has always existed. And that gets to the final thing, which is the film kind of admits it's complete bunk, where you have the black janitor guy who, as we've already said, he shows that some black people are good, who says there aren't any rules, which kind of just shows how everything they're saying is lies. So yeah, I mean, I guess I will ask for your input, because I've just said a lot. Do you think there is a war on Christmas, bearing in mind those 4 areas I just covered?
Yes, absolutely. 100%. No doubt about it. I mean, well, here's the thing. This movie has Get Out. It's like, yes, okay, you can sing Christmas songs. You can put up lights, but of course this is set in the near future where that's not going to be allowed, And that's the Get Out. And I think we kind of Because that's the thing. If you're a Christian watching this movie, you'd be like, well, I can have a nativity play. I put up Christmas lights. I did put up Christmas lights. This movie is taking it too far. But then again, it's like 14 years later, and it doesn't explicitly say what the year is. But I guess that's the thing. It was like, oh yeah, in a few years, you can't even see the Bible or read the Bible. Sorry, in school or whatever. So yeah, do you have anything else to say on it?
Yeah, the only other thing, and I think you kind of hinted at this already, but it's the insincerity of this, and I don't know if you were going to get onto this at a different point, but the idea that it starts off with them saying it's just a Christmas celebration. Obviously, you have that with the idea that putting up lights, Christmas lights, is offensive and things like that. Putting up a Christmas tree is offensive, and yet then obviously when you look at what these people are doing, they explicitly admit what it is that they're talking about. Like there's a bit where somebody says, they say Christmas is Jesus' birthday. So in the very act of them saying like, oh, we should be able to celebrate Christmas because it's just it's a holiday, it's a tradition, whatever else, they then turn around and say, the reason we should celebrate Christmas is because Christmas is Jesus' birthday. And then there is a sign, which I think is supposed to be on public property. I can't remember when we see it, but it says, keep Christ in Christmas. It's during the scene where they're removing the religious stuff from the public property, and it says, keep Christ in Christmas. And that is an explicitly religious message. So I have this idea. Oh, and also there's a bit where he says, I found this funny. He says, you can teach, you can have religious displays as long as you acknowledge other religions as well. And I thought it's funny that he says that, because I bet when conservatives watch this, they heard that. And they didn't really think about what it means, because I think a lot of them are they're not going to think about the fact that this mayor should therefore be celebrating Eid and Diwali in the exact same way or anything like that. So it's just it's very obvious.
That's the hypocrisy. I mean, he says exactly. In that interview, this is a very key thing, he talks about the majority of this people in this country follow this religion. Bill O'Reilly, in his One Christmas thing, says 85% of people in America are Christian. Basically, a central plank of this, I guess, message that this movie is putting out on the whole War on Christmas thing is, hey, most people are Christian. So, they talked about also the founding fathers, they loved their creator. No, they didn't. They were quite secular. I mean, if you want to put a Christmas tree on the courthouse lawn, then somebody would say, okay, how about, you can talk about Eid or Diwali, Hinduism, Islam, which of course they wouldn't be happy about. But what about a satanic symbol? Satanism, that's a religion.
Yeah.
Would you be happy with that? And I think that is something that happened in Oklahoma back in the mid-2000s.
I think it happens a lot.
Yeah, there's like a 10 Commandments put up in front of an Oklahoma courthouse. So somebody's like, right, okay, let's put up this satanic symbol thing, and it's completely accurate. Well, if you are gonna acknowledge other religious symbols, then you gotta do everything. And I guess the hypocrisy comes in where those people would be like, but the majority of people are Christian.
Yeah,
this whole town, like 95% is Christian, so we shouldn't have to. And we shouldn't have to put like a satanic symbol up there, or we shouldn't have to have anyone acknowledging like Eid Mubarak. I think, is it just Eid Mubarak is like...
Eid Mubarak's like Merry Christmas.
Yeah, that's it. But yeah, and right there, that's the hypocrisy. Now, maybe some of them would be principled and say, no, if you put the Christmas tree up, you should be able to put a satanic symbol up as well, like 20 foot high, just like the Christmas tree. But I doubt they would say that. And again, that's the unrelenting hypocrisy of these people. They do not believe in a separation of church and state. Like the ACLU guy keeps on saying it, the separation of church and state. And I keep on thinking like, yeah, absolutely. You people do not believe in a separation of church and state. You want this country to be a Christian, a theocracy, where a dominant religion governs people's, laws and, is basically the dominant religion of the state. And yeah, there's no getting away from that. There is absolutely no getting away from that. You can try and like hide stuff, but as you said, like it comes out in this movie in bits and pieces, saying like, what is it, like Christmas is Jesus' birthday?
Yeah, and there's the line that I think is the most obvious is where there's a sign that says "Put the Christ in Christmas."
Exactly. Yeah, I mean you can try to hide it, and this movie does, but it can't help it. Just lets it slip that. Now, actually, what we want is for Christmas trees everywhere, and no other religion has the same level of support as Christianity from the government.
Sorry, I was going to say I've got one that I think you might like, which I wrote down. I wasn't sure if I was going to mention it, but I think it's actually quite funny. I think you'll like it. He says, you're not allowed, this is him complaining, he says, you're not allowed to teach objectively on the origins of Christmas. And I found that sentence really funny, because it's just like, it's obviously Kirk Cameron's 2014 film was a response to the suggestion that Christmas has its origin in pagan customs. And that was made in 2014. This was made in 2012. And the point being, the idea that Christmas is in some sense has roots in Yuletide and other pagan ideas. It was common knowledge back then. So I feel like this is just a brazen kind of lie almost, because the suggestion is of you're not allowed to teach the origins of Christmas is that if you were to teach the origins of Christmas, it would be in some sense favorable to Christianity. That is the suggestion of what he's saying when he's complaining you can't teach the origins of Christmas, and yet that's not even true. So I found that line funny because obviously it just shows it's about, because it
reminds me the Kirk Cameron thing is like, we celebrate Christmas because it's not because of the winter solstice, because it's the coldest time of the year, it's the darkest time of the year. That's why we celebrate Christmas. Remember that from last year, and of course, it's the same thing, which is great. But I do agree with you. That's that line was a bit ridiculous. What they want, I guess, is unsurprisingly they don't want an objective teaching of Christianity. They want quite a biased teaching of Christianity, which reflects their own beliefs. What a shock, eh?
I think it's because they have this idea they want to understand their very subjective preferences as common sense. So in their mind, if you were to ask them what is the objective origin of Christmas, they would go, well, the objective origin of Christmas is that God came down in the form of a man and was born to a virgin. And they say, and that's all, that's just the objective truth we want to teach in schools. Like, I'm sure that's basically what you would come down to when they're saying we should teach the objective origin of Christmas in school. They want to teach a specifically religious idea.
Absolutely, fundamentalists, and they're so convinced they're right, and they're completely unself-aware. But anyway, let's get on to, I guess, why, Michael? And this is the big question. Why is there this war on Christmas? Why does this movie seek to try and do something about this war on Christmas? Because they don't actually say the line war on Christmas, but of course this is what this is. Christmas has been taken away from Christians, and I of course you can of course put Christmas lights up. You can have a nativity scene on your private property, obviously, but what actually exists nowadays, of the fact that if you put up a Christmas tree in a public place, then you have to put up a menorah. I believe that's what it's called. That's the Jewish thing as well. You have to put it up. And that's the thing. It's Christians in America, they face such little inconvenience. Like, they are not oppressed at all. Of course, this is the reality. But therefore, why do they have this victim complex? Conservative Christians, I should add, because that's who they are. Why do they have this victim complex? And I look at things like when Bob heroically puts a cross on the building. Remember that?
Actually, holy shit, you just reminded me of something which I actually wanted to say because I found it so funny.
Well, do you want to let me finish first?
Sorry, it's such a small aside that I think it will fit.
Okay.
I just wanted to say, obviously there's a controversy about the fact that Bob might not be a hero, a war hero, because he at some point lets some people die, even though he saved loads of people. And after he does this display, the kid says, "You're a hero now," implying that all of the people he saved in war.
Well, that's what I'm going to talk about.
Is that what you were going to say? Okay, that's fine.
Yeah, well, of course. What else would I be talking about?
I don't know, actually. I wasn't sure.
Yeah, he heroically puts this cross on a building, and the movie acts like, he's back in Vietnam or he's in a war, and he tells his grandson to get off the roof because it's too dangerous. But, the police officer it's quite funny, actually. The police officer's just like, "Please come down from the rooftop, sir." I'd love this scene where there's swelling music where he's like, "Come on, Christian, we can do this." And the police officer there's no music at the bottom of the building. He's like, "Come on, sir, could you please exit the rooftop, please?" And then his son, or grandson, sorry, gives him the Medal of Honor, like you say. And they are acting like this is a war, just like, the war in Afghanistan or the Vietnam War, which is, I think, a hilariously sad indictment of modern conservatives in America, that this is viewed as, fighting back. This is like a war thing. But, why do they have this victim complex, that they're being oppressed? And I've got a theory, and basically this theory, it first came to me after watching this TikTok of this girl, who you may have seen, it got like 1 million views on Twitter, of this conservative girl who is basically saying that she won't take a vaccine. She's blonde, she's wearing a red hat, I believe, and she's like, "No, will you take the vaccine?" And she, there's very emotional music playing in the background, and she shakes her head and she goes, no, I won't take the vaccine."
I haven't seen it.
And then, you have seen it, and then then the text comes up, "So that means we have to kill you. You realise that?" And she cries and nods her head and goes, yes. And then it cuts to her being in heaven. And like God says, "Thank you for believing in me and trusting me," or whatever.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, and it's like, again, you just take, like, nobody's going to kill you if you don't take the vaccine. Why do you want to be this victim? And again, I see the ending of the TikTok, and it's like, oh yeah, you want to show God how good you were for standing up to your quote-unquote oppressors. you want to be tested to show how good a person you are. You want to be oppressed badly. You want it so you can show, God and everyone else, look what a heroic person I am. And that comes. I think that comes from, of course, you read the Bible, you have a lot of stories about heroic people doing sacrificial things, and how does that just in a society where you are completely powerful, your religion is anyway, you have the dominant religion, nobody is oppressed in America for being a Christian. Well, how does that jive with that? Well, if we don't have complete supremacy over everyone, on laws like abortion, for instance, as well, that's another one, then we're being oppressed. And I think that's where it comes from. They really want to, and then there's the conservative aspect of it, of basically, I think selfishness coming in, like we want everyone to act like we do, because I want to decide how other people live their lives. You combine that with the Christian side of, certainly with fundamentalist Christians, of I want to show God how good I am. I want to be tested. I want to be oppressed, and then you have this victim complex. That's where it arises from. Those two instances. So, what do you think about that theory, Michael?
Yeah, I think it is an interesting theory. I guess what's it called? A martyr complex is the more specific term of, like, obviously
that's exactly what it is.
Who, dies for their faith, and it's. I think also, it's definitely got to be the fact that mainstream Christianity is, and there is this weird paradox in this film where every single person in the entire town seems to be pro-Christian, except for a very tiny select few elites. And it's kind of, the paradox has to be, how can we be the majority and yet also be oppressed? And I guess the idea is they have to imagine that there is some group of people who have this extreme amount of power. I also think maybe it's because they have to come up with a way of acting as if they are, I guess, serving God in a manner that also requires very little effort, because obviously it's been pointed out before that one of the things that Jesus does a lot, and one of the things lots of people do in the Bible, is stuff that could be considered socialist. In Acts it says that all of the apostles didn't own anything. They sold everything they had and they kept everything in common. And you don't see many Christians in America, certainly, acting as if there's an imperative to own everything in common. They seem to be very much against that. But the thing is, that's quite a difficult thing to do, and it's something which definitely requires a large amount of sacrifice that even quite good Christians aren't willing to do. So, but for these Americans, these evangelicals, they don't want to not be good Christians, but they also don't want to have to stop living in their really nice houses in their really nice suburban neighborhoods and things like that. So, but they want to be radicals. They want to be radically in love with God. So the solution is invent a problem, act as if that problem is much more of a problem than it is, and then they can feel like they're good Christians for opposing that made up problem. So I think that's kind of another aspect of it. They don't want to do the effort of actual difficult, what's called stewardship. So they just invent a problem.
That's a good point. So they have two options. Either, be this martyr thing, be tested, be oppressed, or, act to psychologically think to themselves, yes, I am a good Christian, or the other, path, which is, like we said, actually give up some money, donate to charities or whatever, and help poor people, which is of course quite antithetical to the American economic system, which is promoted over there, which is very individualistic and capitalist, as we all know. So that's a good point. So let's talk about the final point of this movie, Michael, which we are going to discuss, which is the freedom fighting bit, because this movie morphs from Christians are being oppressed, there's a victim complex, there's a war on Christmas, and that morphs into, well, you have to fight back, you have to fight for our freedoms. And this movie does start off with a very nice quote about how Americans have to die to protect freedom. Freedom isn't free, lovely start to the movie. It's just a lovely fascist quote there, and then it's like, this is from Ronald Reagan. How great, Ronald Reagan, of course it is. And the message of the movie, you have to fight back to preserve Christmas, and therefore your religion and your freedom, etc. It's essentially what it is a call to arms. It's a call to arms, and that's why, again, when that soldier, who's of course Christian's dad, dies on that video, it should be treated as shock horror. Everyone stands up and claps and salutes, because that's what you got to do. It's you got to die for this, man. You got to die for this. And when Christian earlier on in the movie asks Bob, "Hey, what did my dad die for?" and it's it's funny because he says, well, he died, so essentially you could say Merry Christmas at Kmart. You know,
Yes.
I mean, his dad dies so that, you know, a Christmas parade in LA would not be named the Hollywood Santa Parade. You know, remember that thing on the radio where Bob hears that and he just gives a shake of the head like, God damn it. You know, or that schools will say Christmas break instead of winter break. You know, because that's, I guess, realistic in terms of what happens in modern America. You know, employees that came out will probably say, hey, happy holidays instead. And yeah, I can imagine, you know, parades being named like the Santa Parade or whatever. And and that's what I think about it all. I think this is what they're willing to die for, because that's the only quote unquote oppression, like we said, where that these guys are actually facing. And of course, his dad went off to die. That's the thing. His dad actually, if we talk about the actual reason his dad went off to die, his dad did not go off to die for, you know, for preserving your religious freedom in Iraq or Afghanistan. He went off to die so he could increase oil companies' profits, like Halliburton, and essentially mean that America could expand its empire. And that's something that, again, is never mentioned. You know, that's not the reason why these people think that his dad went off to die in Iraq or Afghanistan or what he died for. But it's funny because you try to tell these people, no, that's what your dad did die for. He did die for some, you know, oil companies' profits, and they say no. His dad died so I can say Merry Christmas at Applebee's. And it's like, well, okay, you know, that's almost as pointless and shit as the actual reason he died for. I keep thinking you're getting scammed. No, he didn't. But then you didn't actually die to preserve your freedom. You didn't. No, but then the actual reason is just almost as shit. And so that's what I get, Michael, out of, well, what did these people die for over in Iraq and Afghanistan? Because they genuinely believe it. They genuinely believe that that their dad or their son went to Iraq and died to protect freedom. And it's like, no, that's not the case. But their kind of freedom is just so pathetic as well. And that's where I think, yes, it is ridiculous. But that they went over to Iraq. But do you understand, Michael, my dilemma?
Oh, yeah. No, I mean, there is a line. I think it's. So I wrote it down. It's he says, I think it's my dad fought for what he believed in. Can you say you fought for what you believed in? That's like a line that's out there, obviously, that Chris says. And I found that line really interesting because you think, like, imagine, I genuinely am really struggling to imagine if you ask somebody who fought in Iraq, what did you believe in that made you want to fight in Iraq? The only answer I can think of would be like a non-answer, like America. Because if they say, like, that's the crazy thing. They probably would say freedom. And it's like, how can you say that? How can you say your belief in freedom, in the ideals of freedom, made you go and fight in Iraq? And, you know, maybe they'll say, oh, Saddam Hussein was a dictatorship. And then, well, you say, well, hold on a minute. What about like Saudi Arabia, their allies? So, you know, it's obvious. And that's the thing. Like, there is no reason.
You can call them out on their ignorance, but like looking back 14 years after he died, and you still believe that. You still believe in freedom. That's the thing. The dad still, he says right at the start, like, oh, I loved every minute I was in Vietnam.
Oh, yeah. I found that really
and it's
funny.
Like, how fucking depraved do you have to be to think this? And even he recalls this story of, you know, his colleagues dying. A horrific thing that he must have happened, you know, him so close to death. But he's like, nah, it was worth it at the end of the day.
He said he wouldn't trade it for the world. He said, I wouldn't trade my time serving my country for the world. And you think, but it was Vietnam. I don't get it.
Yeah, and that's what I genuinely don't understand about it. How can you look back on Vietnam and think, oh yeah, without Vietnam, America, oh now we'd be, you know, a communist nation or something? Of course that wouldn't be the case. Of course it wouldn't. Like how can you look back on Iraq and say, yeah, without Iraq, you know, I don't know, the Muslims would have taken over. I mean,
like you wonder what it could possibly be. It's just insane.
I know, but yeah, like we said, the actual reason that they give when you get actually behind the freedom coverall, because that freedom could mean anything. It's like, oh yeah, I want to be able to basically put a Christmas tree up in my town square. And again, there is no correlation at all. There is no correlation between war in Iraq and that. But even if there was, it's a fucking stupid reason to go to war in Iraq.
There's something so funny, like morbidly funny, about the idea of like a child in Iraq dying from, I don't know, an IED or like friendly fire or whatever.
Yes.
And you say like, and as they're dying, like, why did they have to die? Well, you had to die so that Americans could, American suburban Christians could do what they were allowed to do anyway and have always been allowed to do and will always be allowed to do, which is put up Christmas decorations. Okay. In that case, it was all worth it.
Okay, yes, exactly.
Yeah, it's a reasonable sacrifice. I actually do have a line which I think is possibly the worst line, and it's an obscure one. When he gets thrown in prison, one of the people is obviously an angel or whatever, as we established, some kind of mystical thing. And the other guy, to the right of him, says, if you're the mayor, prove it and get us out of here. He says that line, and it's a line which you probably will miss if you're not familiar with the biblical narrative. Yeah. But in the Bible, when Jesus is on the cross, one of the thieves, the thief who doesn't convert and doesn't believe, says, if you're the Son of God, prove it and get down from this cross. He says that line. And I am so sure that the fact that you have this guy thrown in prison, and on one side of him is somebody who says, if you're the mayor, prove it by getting us out of here. And on the other side of him is the guardian angel. You know, it would have been more obvious if it was the guy who said, hey man, I heard what you said, and I now believe in Christmas, whatever. Anyway, I'm really sure that is supposed to be an allusion to Jesus on the cross. And it's a guy who's thrown in prison for celebrating Christmas. And I just thought that was like the worst thing. And I realized it the second time I watched it. That's their victim
complex. Yeah, that's what we talked about before. That is their victim complex. They want to be a martyr. Jesus, of course, the ultimate martyr. They all want to be the martyrs, man. And as we said before, you know, there's a bunch of reasons why that's the case. And it's just really, really pathetic overall. But yeah, back on, just to finish up on the freedom fighting thing, yeah, I guess I want to scream at these people, like, there is no correlation between you going to fight in Iraq and, you know, freedoms at home. And even if there was a correlation, you know, between fighting in Iraq and being able to say, you know, Merry Christmas at fucking Applebee's, like I said, that's a ridiculous reason. But they all think it's a great reason, because that is the reality. That, you know, their freedoms aren't threatened. So it's just mind-bogglingly stupid overall, this, you know, you have to fight for your freedom thing. It's depressing in so many ways. And yeah, that's what really I thought at the end, just quite depressing that people could actually believe this shit. But anyway, Michael, let's conclude now. You can go first and try and be quick.
Yeah, I'll try. The funny thing about this film compared to Kirk Cameron's Saving Christmas is that in some sense it's better because this film tries to be a film. I'll never forget the fact that Kirk Cameron's Saving Christmas literally doesn't even try to be a film. This film, it does try to be a film, but it is also true that even at the basic level of being a film, it fails. As we've already established, you have these weird interpersonal conflicts which are hinted at and then not delivered on and things like that. So you have that. The toning, it's not toning. The pacing is a bit weird at some points, and the tone is arguably a bit weird at some points. But obviously the main thing is this message, and in some sense, it is funny, and it is something where you do want to laugh at how ridiculous it is. And obviously, I mean, I cracked up when I was regaling us with that story of them showing the dad dying in the play, and it is, you know, it is. For being as short as it is, there are quite a few very funny moments and just a few really funny lines. But there are also quite a few lines where, yeah, when you realize people actually believe this, it's really gross. So I think I'm going to say that this film is... See, I almost do want to give it more credit because I did find it quite funny. And therefore, I think I'll very generously give it more than a 1, and I will say it is a 2. A very low 2. I'm going to put it above Lion King 2019, so take that, Disney.
Okay.
But below 365 Days, so that's a very low 2.
Well,
but
Michael,
it's better than nothing.
I'm going to give this movie a 0.5. This is my worst ever rated movie, and the reason is, yes, there are some great moments. I love the Hammerschmidt thing, and of course when the guy dies at the end of the school play, and nobody's horrified by it. It's hilarious, and it's a great encapsulation of how ultimately depraved this Christian fundamentalist sect in America is, as we've been through. But yeah, overall the message is just, like I said, it's incredibly depressing, and the movie is so boring throughout. Man, it's so predictable. That's the thing. The plot is so predictable. It feels like a movie that came out, you know, ages ago. And yeah, things have moved on so much in politics from 2012, and you can actually see just the fact that people who watched this movie, who, you know, or produced it, were crying out for, like, I guess, a Trump-like figure. You know, that Bob fucking what's he called? Bob Revere is, you know, what Trump actually is to a lot of people. You know, and that's and that his rise in the Republican Party makes a lot of sense. Now, again, you watch this media of just before he came to prominence. I think there was an Onion article that came out like after 2012. It's like, next Republican candidate will just be like a burning ball of fire and fury, and it's like, turned out to be the case with Trump and what he was saying in the primaries. Of course, why he won the general election was a bit different, but yeah, I just look at this and I think it's just the worst piece of propaganda ever. It's just so bad. It's just so insulting, and I guess, awful, poorly done, lacking creativity, just shit. And the only reason why it's not a 0 is because there are some bright moments, but the vast majority is, it's awful. So for that reason, it's 0.5. The worst ever, Michael. Worse than Kirk Cameron Saving Christmas, because at least with Kirk Cameron Saving Christmas, it was more...
You had the dance fight at the end.
Yeah, it was funnier.
That was...
I found that movie funnier, I will say.
And Kirk Cameron Saving Christmas was shorter.
Yeah, it was shorter. That makes a difference. And so, Michael, let's move on now to talking about...
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Where you snatched the prize out of my hand.
That's exactly what I'm going to do. Because here's the thing: Wonder Woman 1984. It came out on the 16th of December. On the I believe it was the 18th of December, had a look at the Rotten Tomato score, and there was a fair few reviews in, and it was around 87%. And so I was like, okay, that's probably where it's going to stay. If it drops a bit to like 85, so I quote unquote win, well, it doesn't really matter because we're reviewing at this time.
It's dropped down loads,
but it has dropped down to 66%.
Blimey.
Clearly Warner Brothers, and it's the same with, Star Wars, they critics who get to see it early, they will say, how dare you suggest we're getting paid off? But clearly there's a bit of, you give us a good review, then you can see the movie first, and the next time a movie comes out, you can get back and you can have it first, and it's a symbiotic relationship, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. You scratch my back, I scratch yours.
You scratch my back, I scratch yours. That's clearly the case with these reviews, because my God, it had a decent amount of reviews. For it to drop to 66% on Rotten Tomatoes, wow, that's a massive drop. So I'm not having some hack fraud reviewers, some fucking paid off Warner Brothers people lose this for me. I am now on level... I am now level with you, Michael. I'm now level with you. Instead of, we did not finish on 60 and 62. Instead, I was 20 points off, and you were 88 points off. So in fact, it was like 81 to 81. That's where we finished, or something like that.
You know what, Luke? I'm going to do something incredible.
What?
I'm going to do something which I think some people could learn from. I am going to graciously concede.
No. We tied.
I know. I guess I'm going to concede my victory. But I do want to point one thing out, now that you've mentioned Rotten Tomatoes being hack frauds, and that is that The Rise of Skywalker is still at 86% audience score.
Great.
And it hasn't moved since it came out.
You'd love to see it. But that's the thing, it's not really Rotten Tomatoes in the case of Wonder Woman, it's the early reviewers.
Yeah.
But yeah, obviously something fishy's going on
Shills.
there. Yes, absolute shills. I'm not having shills take away this victory, which means, Michael, we are now tied. In fact, we are now tied.
Yeah. What a nice solution for Christmas. A nice little... Everyone's happy.
Well, no, because we're going to flip a coin, because there has to be a winner.
Oh, sorry. Okay. Well, hold on a minute. How are you going to trust me? Because
Because it's Christmas, Michael. You can't tell a lie at Christmas.
Actually, Luke, you know what? I have a golden coin.
Oh my God.
Oh shit, but the two sides are identical. That's complete bullshit.
Well, that's ridiculous, isn't it?
Wait, let me see if I can make it... Okay, I'm gonna make a kind of mark or something. I'll make a mark. What would you like the mark to be that will signify the head side?
I don't know. Just
should we draw a cross?
Yeah, a cross, and you can have the head side since you are a Christian. You can have that.
Yes, good plan.
I'm just typing in the scores there. Yeah.
Right. So we have. Wait. So I'll be cross. Okay.
Yes.
I'll be cross if I don't win.
Give
okay.
the countdown.
You're going to hear the. Okay. You're going to hear the noise of it hitting my laptop as I flip it.
Yeah.
Okay. 3, 2, 1. I kind of hope you win, so you can't accuse me of cheating. You won.
I did win.
Yep.
Yes, I am victorious. Thank you very much.
Yes.
You know what?
Now I can concede.
That is a Christmas miracle. I thought I'd lost it. I thought we were 1-on-1 in terms of this Rotten Tomato scoring thing. But God, who would have thought, eh? Oh, that's made my day. Absolutely made my day. Yeah. That's the best Christmas present I could ask for, Michael. My reign as the ultimate aggregator of Rotten Tomato scores continues. When will it? Is this the start of a dynasty? Will I go on a 3-0 run? Oh my God! How could we? Well,
you know what, Luke?
Conceive of such an incredible run of results.
You got to remember, if you're on the verge of a 3-year run, that so are Lad Baby with Christmas number ones.
Okay, well, thanks for that. Michael, what are we doing next week?
Well, next week we are doing a very similar film in a lot of ways. I believe it's Gladiator. Is that right?
Yes, we are. Gladiator.
Yeah, okay.
Gladiator.
I didn't look because I was hoping I'd remembered. Yes, Gladiator.
Yeah, and that's it for not just Last Dance of Courage, but the whole year, because that'll be our first release of 2021, Gladiator. So yes, thank you for listening. We've been selecting or reflecting on Last Ounce of Courage. I rated it as...
Yeah, what a horrible note to end on.
No, because this is a terrible year, so it was quite fitting, I think, that we did a terrible movie.
When we hit the Best Picture nominee for the Oscars, I count that as the end of each year.
Oh, right.
So, but I guess that means last year we ended on Green Book, so
yeah,
It doesn't work out well either way, knowing the Academy.
So thank you for listening. Join us next week for Gladiator. Who have you been, Michael?
I've been Michael.
I've been Luke. Thanks for listening, and goodbye.
Goodbye.